And we're live. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. This is On the Edge of Shadow, and we're at session 6 here of Shapes in the Dark. Just a brief recap of last session. We've had a little bit of a hiatus here. Just a few moments ago, you guys were able to very valiantly repel an attack by some bandits out on a country road. One of your number, Amorous Thorn, unfortunately, took an arrow to the shoulder in a fashion where it's taken that entire arm out of commission. But nevertheless, you guys were able to hold the line and repel them, scoring 8 kills for your band of 3 individuals here. And I have forwarded the loot to the party quartermaster. As the dust settles, the skies darken as if it wants to rain. There may be a thunderstorm within the next couple hours. There's kind of a lukewarm wind kicks up, just enough to give some play on your cloaks. Keith, would you describe your character for us?
Ferdleia stands there, the wind whipping through his light cloak that is of an exotic cut. Underneath, he has a long black robe with a hood, very scholarly look. But at his hip, he has hanging a very large curved bronze blade. Definitely different from the type that is the other people in the area. On his back is a wooden shield. His skin is almost an alabaster white, and his eyes under the hood, which is fluttering with the wind, are an amber hue that when the light catches them just right, seem to glow red. He is currently washing his hands because he has been moving bodies and such since the attack, and is very concerned for his friend who took the arrow to his shoulder, which our friend Tane was tending to as well. He has a more morose look on his face at the moment because the battle ended oddly for him. He had slain one fellow and looked at another, and as he did, without even thinking about it, he touched the blade to his tongue and licked the blood off. And it sent a thrill through him that he had not felt before. He had tasted human blood before, obviously, but never knowingly at the onset had he known for a fact this blood came from the human body before he could have explained it off that, maybe they just told him that. Maybe this was actually, bull's blood or pig's blood or something like that. He was not actually seen that come from someone else. In this case, he knew for a fact he had just tasted human blood. He, though he looks with concern at his friend Tane, and him tending his fallen companion as well, he thinks to himself, is he wounded deeper than that in a way that can't be seen?
Yeah, as Tane just removing the arrow and completing his packing of the wound, he's more meticulous than normal and sort of terse in his movements, kind of quick. And you might notice that Amorous is probably complaining a little more in his movements.
Very poor bedside manner there.
At the moment, and he's just like, he just keeps looking over at him like with the side eye, and then he'll be all right. Don't be such a pussy. He stands up and he just sort of looks at him for a minute and then causes him to see his hand as he's looking down at him, and he just grips it real quick as he turns and just sort of walks over to the path and picks up some dirt and rubs it on his hands as he's sort of clotting the blood and gore from his hands and rubbing it off, and very vigorously, almost like he's trying to remove the black that is beginning to come into his skin at the fingertips and the nails. And he just stops and then shakes his hands down, pulls out the water skin and just rinses his hands. You can see that his skin on his forearms and upper arms, somewhat of a pale nature, in pretty contrast to the black. On his torso, he is adorned with his horsehair tunic and his leather jerkin. He stands up and fixes his weapons, his broadsword and his axe, and looks to his mare. And as he goes over and takes a moment to run his hands over, giving her some attention, and the look in the eye and the just unresponsive to his touches, he stands up straight, pulls out his axe, walks over and grabs the head of the first brigand that's close and just hacks the head off and throws it off into the field, and then continues down, just hacking the heads off and throwing them off into the field. And then he just goes and sits down and scrapes the remnants off the blade, not paying any attention to the fact that he splattered more gore on his pants. What do we have?
Fern Last was watching this whole display, very savage display from his friend. That though he knew that the Geats are known for being brutal to enemies, he'd never seen this kind of a display. But normally something like that would have turned his stomach. But all he could see was as Tane was casting these heads off into the brush, the arcs of glistening crimson blood hanging in the air, rising that hunger inside of him. And he shakes himself as he finds himself mesmerized by this and horrified by it at the same time. And he steels himself and walks over and stands next to Tane and looks down and says, "I think a storm's coming."
What makes you think that?
Fern just points at the clouds on the horizon and the freshening breeze, and he says, "The weather, my eyes see it there."
Yeah, I'm distracted. You're probably right. Should seek shelter.
He reaches down and touches Tane's shoulder and says, "My friend, we're all distracted. We need to get Thorn somewhere covered." And
he's actually sitting on probably the shoulder of the road, just kind of like trying to chill out.
Yeah. He looks over at the ox cart and the ox, and he says, I wouldn't call upon you to do this, but I don't know how to rig that beast to that cart, and I think we'll need that. So, and he points at the pile of gear that's been stripped off of these guys. I don't think we can carry that all together, but the cart definitely can.
I think we could use the ox, right?
Oh yeah. You guys, after you'd repelled these brigands, the couple that actually fled into the nearby forest, actually went ahead and said, I believe towards the end of last session, when Thorn actually walked out there to retrieve some of his kills, I mean, albeit with one arm. You guys saw that there had been like a small gully, and that's where you found their initial camp, and we reconvened the scene back on the road, and that's where you guys are kind of taking stock of everything there. But moving forward with the scene there, where is Tane sitting? He's just kind of like side of the road on a rock, minding his own business?
I mean, since basically I haven't really sat down yet, I've
Okay.
knelt down because I've just, at least beheaded them.
Okay. You feel a presence, really kind of, you're kind of like off in your own pall, shadowy pall right now, but you do feel a wild presence just kind of approach you, and then you kind of, I shouldn't say no, it's not kind of, it is. Imagine in your mind if, and we've all seen horses and their anatomy. If a horse's mouth could kind of just do this on the side of your face and nuzzle like into like the nape of your neck and then snort on you. That is a display of affection that you've come to expect from your partner. In cycles past, which has not been, you've now received this level of recognition since you got here. So in that moment, this is what happens to you when you're kind of just like analyzing and off.
So my mayor has moved up to me and is nuzzling me?
Yes. And if horses could kind of do the kissy face kind of sound, then yeah, sure.
Interesting. So I turn and I look into her eyes, and
the haze is lessening. There's still, she's off, but she sees you.
But recognizes me.
At least possibly a specter of you in her eye, perhaps. You may analyze that how you wish, given the corruption.
Yeah. He is. He's gonna rest his forehead to hers and try to send out the telepathy of "Are you with me?"
No, by now I'm pretty sure I should have actually said it in the past. She is sentient enough with your connection to where you can recognize shadow sickness in her, because she's not a normal horse. She's not some draft horse in a village somewhere. There's some more. It's more familiar, less druidic animal companion on the spectrum of things. It's more. Does that make sense?
In relation to how I communicate?
In your bond, your communication, okay. That sort of thing. So when you try and use your telepathy with her, it's like you're trying to move through a membrane. Okay. If you've ever been in, speaking as a food service professional, a lot of walk-in coolers are gonna have this big, heavy plastic carton. You move through that, and it's like a 25-degree difference. And that's the kind of membrane that you're moving through. But you feel with your corruption and hers, you can actually connect. there is still that there, but you both it's harder, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You,
So
however, mechanically are tainted. She is not.
okay.
So, does that answer
So
your
I
question? I'm
can,
sorry.
yeah, I can,
Oh,
no, like I can kind of sense that it's there, but
hmm
very distant. And
right.
I reach down and reflexively and grab just a morsel of food and bring it up to her mouth, and then scratch her on the top of the head as she's eating it. And I look over at Fern, and I kind of, it's a small smile, but there's a little bit of a smile.
Noticing this situation, having heard Tane complain ceaselessly about him not having his connection to his horse, and seeing her be very not, as almost like a, in his mind, sort of like a spurned lover, not wanting to recognize the source of her discontent at the moment. Seeing that does bring a little bit of light to his heart, and there's a lot of hope to this. He had noticed Tane's hands. He knew what that meant. The shadow sickness taking over his friend, who'd always been such a holy spiritual being. And that had put a pall upon him. And of course, Fern, even to this day, still blames himself for his friends coming, even though they claim it is their own choice. He just a little bit of just a little spark of warmth in his heart when he sees this. And as the breeze blows the scent of rain, I guess, possibly against his face.
Rain and there's a bog nearby, a fetid bog somewhere.
Just still sort of wrinkle his nose up and shake his head and say, "Oh, that's bad." Tane, should we go to high ground? How do we do this? I'm
Well,
not
let
familiar
me,
with the wilds.
2 drops on Tane's head. Raindrops. Just 2.
how was their stronghold, or if you can't even call it that, how was their camp?
Their camp was a gully and a kind of a dirt track. It's not an escarpment, because an escarpment is long and kind of huge. Think of that, but it's like half of a ravine, kind of like an old riverbed is really what they were in. If it rains enough, that's gonna flood something fierce.
Yeah, so with a 17 wild lore, I'm kind of scanning the landscape to see if there's something that looks like would be useful right now.
Not in your immediate vicinity. If you travel, it looks to be about a half a mile away. It gets more hilly. You're kind of in an open, loping field kind of area, but the hills aren't high enough that would be considered high ground.
Okay.
But as you
So-
know, the village that you were traveling to was indeed on a hill. You have no idea how close you are to that, though.
Yeah, we need to get moving. And Amaris, can you get in the cart?
He'll get up and sit in the cart.
Okay. And which is the cart is just a cart. You'd have to get on the back of the ox if you were going to ride it. They're slow as it is.
Yeah, it's a cart. It's a 2-wheeled cart, but like the back, he can sit in it. He'd have to move some shit around to be able to sit on the floor, but yeah, he can get
If he
in there.
needs to, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Just for
we
the
need to
sake
get
of
moving.
argument,
So
we'll say there's 1 seat for like a driver, if you will.
okay. So how fast can we get the ox going?
He's kind of a beaten down old musk ox, and he'll probably go as, I suppose, as quick as his he's not young, we'll put it that way. Unfortunately, he's been pulling plow and other field equipment for most of his life, so his back is sagging and it sways.
All right, so I motion to Fern and get on the back of my mare and offer my hand.
Okay. He'll he will inexpertly mount your horse, so he'll hang on for dear life once he gets up there. He's ridden a bit before, but not a lot. So, he knows how to not fall off at a walk. You could tell. So,
All right, so I kick it up and try to get as fast as that ox can get going.
Which I suppose muskox can probably what passes for a bovine trot.
Yeah,
I suppose. Yeah, he's not running.
They can go 10 miles an hour if they really try. So.
Well, we'll say he's going
They
7 because he's older and shit.
Okay. Nice.
Some time down the road, and the kind of like the dirt track highway that kind of links the other villages to Royston is kind of a well-worn path. You spend about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and the road will curve around this woodland, and you will actually see this village up on a somewhat of a larger hill. Seems just beyond this forest that your shelter was resting. At this time, however, I will say that the sound of the most horrible, mournful, and tear-jerking moan just kind of rolls over the plains. It's a long, low, tear-jerking roar of someone that is inconsolable, and that's not a human sound.
Lance, of course, whipping his head around, looking to see if he can find the source of this noise. Make an awareness test.
Please do.
I ain't seeing crap. I see it. I rolled double ones.
Oh shit! Yeah, open your eyes. That'll help.
I probably just saw a tree and thought it was a monster. Pointed at it.
That thing. It's making a noise.
Yeah. Oh my God! Look.
Who has the lowest spirit score of the party?
Probably me.
My spirit's 8. So
my spirit is 6.
Mike just texted me. He's gonna be joining us shortly. He goes, "Is it too late to join?" I'm like, "No, get your ass in here." No, it's I'm gonna say we'll go with Fernelius here. Fernelius, this wait, sorry, hang on. What was your spirit again?
my spirit is 8.
Your spirit is 8, and Tane's is 6. Excuse me, then. Wow. Excuse me, my apologies to the audience. I got sidetracked here. Now, Tane, your spirit's the lowest. Something in this mournful roar strikes you in your heart, and it breaks your heart just a little bit, and your tears well up. There is a sorcery in that mournful call that makes you think my mate has been slain. If you would give us a brief soliloquy.
Not mine, but whatever it is.
Right. It makes you kind of like subconsciously feel that as if it was your mate.
And with Fern behind him, you feel his back stiffen, and all of a sudden you feel his shoulders start to bounce, like he's maybe chuckling at first, but you feel his head bow, and he literally leans forward and just puts his arms around the neck of his mare.
It's at this point that Fern feels it too. You've never been in love before in your life.
No.
But you feel it as if you were.
Okay. As Tang grabs the mare and, of course, pulls him to the side, bumps his leg against the cart, he, of course, he's staring at this tree, just horrified. And then that feeling washes over him, that longing, that hollow of knowing, a feeling that something was there and now it's not, and that it's never going to be there again. And he just openly starts crying.
The call comes out again as this washes over you. You enter the village, and the faces of these people here. Now, the previous village that you were outsiders in, they showed you initially a fair amount of hostility due to their superstition. These people are racked with a similar grief to yours, and the watchmen just look up at you. They wipe the tears from their eyes, and they just, I don't give a shit about you. It starts to rain harder now, and you reflexively stop your cart, and the gate captain just kind of looks up at you. His lower lip quivers ever so slightly. Just, get your asses in here. Doesn't even ask you anything.
At this point, Fernandez is wiping his face. He's got his hood pulled far down, and he's like, I got dust in my eye, and lots of dust. Of course, it's raining, so there's no dust.
I'm not crying. These are tears of pride. You find your way to a public stable, which is basically a big thatched awning with 3 stalls, 2 of which are open and enough, I suppose, cart space for you to store your things under. That poor muskox, he just kind of like, when you unhook him or unhitch him from the cart, he just goes to wherever the paddock is and just waits at the door. Miserable thing being rained on, which in your state, you may or may not find some kindness, and you don't let him be out in the rain, the pigs and the sheep. But in this mournful haze that you've walked into, I would like a brief soliloquy from each of you as you recover from this journey.
Okay. Fern, as he slides off the horse, he pats her on the side, and he says, he mutters something under his breath. It's he's not even sure what he's saying. It's some kind of consolation, as if he's trying to comfort the horse while he's comforting himself. He walks over to where the ox is at the paddock, and looks out over the where the rain is. he reaches up and he sort of tussles the fur at the back of the big animal's head there and scratches a little bit. And he's just sitting there looking out into this rain where this noise is coming from, and feeling the tears roll down out of his eyes, down his face.
It is definitely coming from the woods.
Okay. And he turns and sort of walks over and just sits down in one corner of this place, wraps his arms around his knees, and just sort of rocks back and forth at the idea of loss. He's literally thinking of every person he left behind, all the people that he's known that he's thinking to himself he may never see again. He's thinking of the nights in the taverns there in Feldport where him and Thorn and Tane would sit and drink and tell stories and sing songs all night. The barmaids that would come around with a bright smile and a little wiggle to entice Thorn, as they always did, and occasionally would look at him with this exotic look of longing that at the same time, he always got that sort of feeling that it's as if someone looked at a flame, and they know if they touch it, they'll be burned, but it's so beautiful they want to reach out and touch it anyway. That kind of a look on these ladies' faces. And he thinks to himself, will he ever himself find someone that is capable of loving him in the way that whatever this thing out there in the forest loved and now is lost? And he just tucks his face into his knees and he just starts bawling.
Tane, let us see what racks his heart at this time.
Tane has dismounted his mare and noticed that Fern was about to fall off and caught him just as he was mid-fall, just almost reflexively. And he's looking at the ground, which is kind of blurry through the vision of his oculars that are sort of rimmed with black. And hearing the rise and ebb and flow, if you will, of the wailing, he sits and considers his loss. And usually in these circumstances, he knows that he's supposed to try to balance it like a scale. He remembers his uncle trying to say that when you feel this way, you need to convince yourself otherwise, especially when it's bad. But he's not even, it's there in his mind, the teachings of his uncle, but it's distant and it's past, and all he sees is he's looking upon the face of his uncle, and the words are just not getting through to him. And he walks over and almost reflexively leading his mare forward and goes over to the ox and leads them both in, and he's just sort of shuddering with it. And as he takes them both into the stall, he first does a pat down, a quick rub down of the mare, and then he walks over the ox and he's doing it. And the whole time he's going from his uncle to his mother and his father, and things that he's no longer has. And he just feels lost as he just kind of, a moment just kind of washes over him as it hits him, and he just rocks up against the wall of the stable and then looks up to the sky and just sort of quietly asks, Agiun, I need you now more than ever. Throw me a line.
One of the stalls, the horse stalls, was open. I was going over some notes here. I did not catch if you actually put her in there and close the door.
Well, you said there's no walls, so it's probably got a fence around it.
Yeah, the stalls are basically a fence with doors in there. So yeah.
Right. I mean, under the circumstances, I think this is where we were going to have her sleep, right?
Right. Yeah. It's dry in there and it's safe for the most part. Now, if you are still within, I suppose, reaching distance, she will attempt to be affectionate with you again, seeing this pain and grief on you. And she tries to console you there.
And it actually prompts a chuckle. You know those chuckles you get sometimes when you're just racked and something makes you laugh, just oddly, weirdly.
Mm.
And he just kind of drops to his knees and puts his hand on her foreflank and just sort of starts petting her.
A few feet away, Fernaleus will feel a presence, kind of walk up to him, and the soft yet calloused hands, you don't even have to see to know that these are the hands of a babushka. Her fingers just go through your hair, and like every grandparent on this planet that knows how to comfort anyone, she will massage the back of your skull with her fingers.
Fern will look up from his grief and look up through his blurry eyes at this older lady, and he'll choke up for a moment, find himself coughing a little bit to clear his throat from the incessant phlegm that comes along with the really deep, hard cry. And he croaks out one word: "Why?"
She just shakes her head and says, "I don't know, love. I don't know."
He goes back down into expressing his grief into his knees.
She'll actually, at this moment, and she's of the woodman stock, babushka or otherwise, she'll actually, because her fingers are still in your hair, she actually grab like a fistful of your hair, and she not to pull it, not to hurt you, but as a handle, and she pulls your head. She makes you look at her, and she kind of just bends down. You see, fistful of your hair, hand on cane, and she goes, "But," with her index finger on her other hand, "you have to be strong. You have to be. We don't try. We don't quit. You will."
Through his sniffling and blinking of his eyes, he's looking at her, his head held back. He hears these words, and he thinks back to his master once again. Some of the things he had said about hardship and how we all go through our trials in life, and the measure of a man is not what he has done, where he has been, but how he deals with adversity. And he wipes his face on the sleeve of his robe takes a couple deep breaths and reaches back to the edge of the stall behind him and sort of levers himself up. And he, of course, as high as he can with her hand in his hair. And he gives her a little nod, and sort of taking, as he nods, the sort of pull on his hair to sort of refocus him and remind him of where he is. And he says, "There's a beast in the forest. I saw it. Tall as a tree."
She just nods.
He just nods back. He says, he reaches down and taps his blade, not as if to pull it, just sort of as to bring her attention to it. He says, "If it comes here, it'll meet us."
And she just simply says, "You can do nothing to that beast that has already been done to him. You just leave him be."
He sort of nods and says, "Though it might be a kindness from the sound of it."
That very well may be. She lets go of your hair, and she just kind of like strokes it. And she looks over to your shaman, and she places both her hands on her cane there, and she calls softly in a grandmotherly tone, "Are you well, love?"
Far from it.
She just picks up her cane and just does.
He looks at her kind of, what about? He walks over to her.
She gives you a hug. A consoling grandma hug from the babushka.
Oh, wow. So he is, just sort of, it starts out with racks of just letting it out.
And here come more tears.
But it begins to subside as I would imagine at this point he's able to imagine the scale in his head, and he's starting to see reasons again. Reasons to continue. One is Fern, who's sitting down, is there with him, and then secondly is his mare, and finally at least Thorn. And the babushkas of the world. They're still there. He holds her out at almost length, and as he does, he sort of slides his arms down to her hands and just holds them. I get it. We're not through the pain yet. But that's part of the trial. And I grip her hands and I just nod to her and thank her.
Bringing us back around to Thorn here. Since the bandit attack, you have made it to the village Lewin, and you have heard the mournful roars that have kind of just racked your own soul and your spirit with the grief of loss. You've never been in love with any one person, as you have been a lover of many, but the sorcery in this this mournful call almost put that feeling of as if my mate had been taken from me. And at this point, we will take a soliloquy from Amorous Thorn in these moments here.
Here I am getting thrown on the spot after showing up late. My apologies.
Ah, it's okay.
So no, as was simply spoken, Amorous has never known quote unquote true love before. I guess unless you count his love for the music, which in a way he actually knows exactly what this call sounds like then. But no, as he sits there with, I would assume, a bandaged up arm and mourning the loss of his hand for the moment.
Oh yeah, you've been patched up.
Yeah. As this kind of courses through the land, he will actually take his lute out, and you'll actually see him kind of like cradle it in like his bad arm, and you'll see him take his other hand, and mostly just like his thumb and his forefinger, and he'll pluck like a string at a time. But by itself, it kind of sounds discordant, like it doesn't make sense. But as he does this, and he'll repeat the same like 5 or 6 notes, it actually is almost like a dirge of sorts. And if he actually is in fact mourning this loss that is echoing throughout the world. At the moment with everything, his eyes are kind of dead. So if you look at him, he's just there right now. The impact of his lost arm has not completely echoed through his own head yet. He's still kind of in disbelief of, I can't do this anymore. And then when you stack that cry through the world, it kind of takes everything he has to not break alongside Tane when Tane gets that hug from the babushka. So,
as you're probably not necessarily mindlessly strumming, it's you're with it. You're a minstrel. It's a subconscious thing. You feel a hand on your knee. You've been sitting in the back of the cart. Your legs kind of dangling off the back of the cart this whole time. And evidently, this village has more than one babushka. And this older gal is actually of Nemersian stock. She's very far from home. You see her deep black. Her hair is green, but it is so dark it's black. And her the spray of diamond-shaped freckles across the bridge of her nose and her cheekbones there. She looks up at you in a way that only a grandmother can. She says nothing, but she kind of like squeezes your knee joint just a bit and just gives you a look of, I know. And just in that moment, I won't say it'll happen, but it might be tear jerky. It might be. A third presence comes into, I suppose, the stable here. This open stable that has the storm wind kind of moving through it. This village has not one, not two, but three babushkas. They have their own coven here. And this third babushka is also a woodman stock. She is armed with a blackthorn shillelagh as her cane, and she looks less loving, less gentle in appearance. She's got kind of a hawk-like nose, almost too stereotypical of a witch. But do not catch yourselves judging her by her appearances. She's a cantankerous old tough bitch, but she lays her narrow-eyed gaze upon the lot of you, and she just nods, and then she turns and looks back to the forest where this call slowly dies off. And then she turns back to you. We should probably get you three indoors.
And Fern looks off to the forest off in the distance where he saw that thing on the side of the road. And he shudders just for a moment, thinking to himself, what could love that? And what could it have lost? And he remembers his friend Thorn walks over, sort of checks on him and such. And he says, don't worry, friend. I have all the things you claim for yourself. Don't worry. We have them right here. He goes back into his outfitter mindset and sort of take his mind away from the blended sorrow and horror he has now that the moan has gone away. And he reaches in and starts he pulls a got a bit of a cloak off of one of these guys and still wrap all the stuff in and pulls it to the edge and opens it up. And he goes through with his friends, come closer. Let me show you what we have real quick. He looks at Thorn and says, I think you took some daggers, yes? I know you had he sections off a section that had 10 bronze daggers. He said, I think you'd chosen some of these for yourself, didn't you?
Yeah, that would have been my my choice of that particular stock, so to speak.
Okay. So he sort of motions those, and he takes the 3 copper hand axes and puts them aside and says, hey, I know you use these. And there's this great broadsword and these bows. He looks at Thorn and says, I don't think he'll want to be using the bows. And I don't. Tane, have you ever used these?
A bow?
Yes.
I've used a bow, but I'm competent with my horse bow.
And these may be useful. He passes a couple of strings over to you. Give you a few extras there.
Thank you.
And I mean, the rest of the stuff, I don't typically use it. I'll probably take one of the daggers myself just to have one on me. But the rest, I think we should. What do you gentlemen want to do with these?
Well, truth be told, before I could just look at his shoulder, events happened.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually going to pick up the bow, but unfortunately, I guess fate had other plans for that.
Yes.
So yeah, I think I will just take the daggers for now and probably sort through the rest of it later.
Sounds good to me.
And you actually see him take the daggers, and he'll, as best he can, start sliding into places along his body for easy reach and throwing purposes. So bristling with pointy objects now.
You're going to be real good with that left arm, that left-handed throw.
Definitely. So
Just needs to practice.
He looks over at the babushkas, and he says, looks at his two friends. He says, he takes the great bow out with the broken string, and he holds it out and says, "Would this be sufficient payment for stabling the animals for the night?"
The hawk-nosed babushka, she steps forward and she goes, I think that would be acceptable. And she looks at her sisters there. They all nod their accord.
And
One
Fred
of
will
them
take-
is the Nemersian to step forward and actually take the bow from you.
He'll pass it over with two hands and sort of bow over to her and says, "Thank you very much for your hospitality and for helping us." What was that, may I ask?
Before I answer, where are you from? Because that may change what the name of the beast.
I hail from Fellport. He sort of motions to the two.
The beast in question is called a Leshen. It's a spirit of the woods.
Leshen. He thinks back to that one fellow who had the sketch of a Leshen, the anatomy of a Leshen in a book, and he thinks to himself that, I wonder.
In that wood there once was a mated pair of Leshens that took care of the forest and lived there. They were treated by our village as deities of the forest. Now, in recent times, someone has done a horrible and devilish thing to slay one of the Leshens.
The female, Vern says.
She just kind of looks at you questioning, how do you know that?
I crossed paths with a fellow that seemed to know more about female Leshens than the average person would.
She actually gives you a very hard look. Actually, all three of them do. To be perfectly fair, all three of them do.
It was just a meeting in a tavern, nothing more.
Well, the babushka armed with the shillelagh chimes in, saying, "Well, whoever that horrible devil is, he has a lot to be held accounted for, because that has been carrying on for 2 chains."
And maybe you could help us.
Oh?
For I believe that man is what brought us here to this village. We're going to learn more about him.
About the Slayer or the Leshen?
The Slayer.
Elaborate. Where do you come from?
Well, as I said, I originally come from the city of Felford, but more recently, we've been hailing from Royston, where we met the lady of the city.
Ah, I see.
And
She sent you here for work?
she sent us here to gather information about this person who's been causing trouble of late.
Well, there is plenty of trouble. She kind of looks at your full cart and she goes, "Well, I assume that you were set upon by brigands on the road?"
That could be interpreted that way. more, they allowed us to take out some of our frustrations we've been experiencing recently. Unfortunately, my friend Thorn here, he chose to be more a shield than a sword, if you know what I mean. He took an arrow to his
Hey, I
shoulder.
got my fair number of them.
You did. When we went armed.
The Nemersian babushka kind of just looks up and she pats you on the knee again. Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah. At that, Fern sort of smiles, and he says, "No offense, but Thorn here is a bit of a ladies' man, so."
Ooh.
But he did squeal a little bit when the air was going in, and then of course coming out.
That he did. I'm not sure if he was trying to invent a song for the feeling that he was experiencing, but he's been able to do that as well.
Kind of a chuckle goes through the lot of you here, but the hawk-nosed babushka does smile after the chuckle passes. She points to a hut with her pinky just off away. She goes, "You may have that hovel there. If you are
Thank you.
truly of Adra's employment, then you may stay until your work is done. She is a kind and protective mistress, unlike the other leeches in this place." And she kind of like trails off with a little bit of like grandma bitching there. It might put some warmth into you that there's something so human and so fuck it, normal is now coming back into your life.
You won't find us complaining of that much from what we've experienced so far in this land. Thank you. We need to start a fire, and I believe dry out for a bit. Then he packs a pack with quite a bit of food in it. He said, "I believe we need to feed ourselves, and if you would like to join us, I'm sure we can feed you as well while we speak."
We will let you again. Seemingly the hawk-nosed babushka is the most senior, most elderly of these three of her coven, really, and she kind of like probably speaks with the most authority here. We will come and see you, after you have settled in and recovered. The road is an unsafe place. We will come see you soon.
Thank you, Babushka.
And
Bless us.
never mind the cart. You will not. We are not thieves. Your things, should they wish to stay in the stable. She snaps her fingers, and the stable boy comes over and starts putting a brush or a comb through that poor musk ox who is still standing out in the rain.
No, I said I brought it in.
Oh,
Yeah,
did you? Did you?
he brought it.
Yeah,
okay.
I let them both in.
Okay.
That's all right.
So,
It was a very emotional moment, so you probably looked over it. My performance otherwise was.
It was blinding.
it was. I did not catch it because it was so thorough and
Poor Thorn
worthy.
missed that.
Damn it. But yeah,
Speaking of which, I'm going to go
crushing
over and do
animals.
a husbandry check on the ox too, because it looks like it hasn't gotten that kind of attention in a long time.
Oh yeah. Well, this boy goes to the brushing, and he kind of winces. It's like this poor thing obviously has been abused and not given affection. I mean, and to catch Thorn up, you have a muskox, right? Muskox are big, hairy, wild ox, mostly native to more Arctic regions, and he's been shorn in a way where he just looks like hell. Like he was shorn wrong and awkwardly, and it's not even. So he's even more uncomfortable in the rain. So these bandits obviously didn't give a shit about him. He was just an item to pull the cart. So, and with an amazing 25 husbandry, yeah, like I just said, Dave, he's not been shown affection or what would be considered responsible care. His front left hoof, however, is damaged in a way where it's kind of split. Not down to where it's causing a lot of pain, but it's obviously very fucking uncomfortable, and that's why he doesn't go near as fast as you think he should.
So I could probably take that with that husbandry roll, clean it.
You can clean it, but it's going to take you some time to attempt to mend that.
Okay, well, I take a couple minutes or take a little time to prep it, at least get it started.
Okay.
Fern's going to take the provisions we have and his books and go over to the hovel. And do they have like a little lamp in there or candles or anything like that? And kind of a little light source I could get started in there.
They have a sconce in there, just
Okay.
one that you can put a torch into, but it's not lit.
Okay. He looks and sort of slumps, takes it out, and well, actually, he's going to attempt to get some of the materials together for a fire, based off what he's seen Tane do before, and try to start a fire in the hearth or whatever, the fire pit or whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, there's a center fire pit that's about 8 inches deep there. I am I'm looking for your starting a fire is Wild Lord D12. Or actually D12,
All right, so-
difficulty 12.
And that's based off cunning, right?
Yes. Well, actually, no. Wild Lore Spirit.
Okay. All right. So 19 minus 4. It's a 15.
All right. It doesn't
Yeah.
take you very long to whip that up.
He's very pleased with himself. So he lights the torch off of that fire and puts it in the sconce. And he sits down and opens his book and takes out his inkwell and quills that he received. And he starts writing out notes about this lesson. So about the sound it made, the reaction of the reaction of the village, the way he saw them, and such. And basically, just putting his thoughts down on paper. So,
Okay. Yeah, the mournfulness has kind of subsided now. But you do notice here, there's a presence coming from that village. And when she said a revered like a local deity, you get it. You feel it now. Yeah, there's a god of some kind in that woodland.
we'll note that as well. And he'll try to do a good description of what he saw. So, which, as I said, was basically a twisted tree with this double woman perception. So, it's going to be a very fantastical. If someone ever actually knows anything about legends, actually reads this, like, what the hell did he see?
You're right. Are you sure you saw a legend, or did you see a tree? Right? Anyway. As you were, gentlemen, the floor is yours. I have a little bit of downtime here.
Vern will also start a stew. So let me do a visioner for that.
I'm trying to find the master list of your provisions that I got you, like last week. Where the hell did I put it?
It's in the messenger group. I'm looking at it right now, actually.
Oh, you found it?
The bandit loot stuff, yeah.
Yeah. Would you post that in the Zoom chat? Would you?
Yeah, give me a second. I can try to.
With that, well, just for the sake of argument, you guys have been through a lot, and we're going to have a little bit of downtime here, and we can go through some soliloquies quick. Why don't you guys level up to 4th while we do that? And Thorn, while you find us the supplies here, give us a soliloquy here quick.
All right, so basically, it's all this is going down, and we finally get left to our own devices. Thorn would still have that, like, even after that call, I'm assuming goes away by now, and everyone kind of settles back into their norm again, so to speak. Thorn would still have that melancholy look about him and such. And he just kind of sit there strumming the strings for a few more moments. But then, like, after a while, you actually almost see, like, the wheels in his head turning. Almost like he's trying to figure out a way around his new disability, at least for the moment. As he does it, though, he kind of takes out one of the daggers and he holds it by the tip. He starts tapping it on stuff, and he, like, kind of thinks to himself. He's like, "All right, well, I'm never going to get to play this as well as I used to. So I need to think of something else in the meantime." As he's doing that, he's going to keep, like, tapping on different things. Almost like he's trying to get an ear for it. And, like, Tane and Fern might see this, like, he's going to get this look in his eye, like, my music's going to suffer, but these things have become my new bread and butter. And I'll be goddamn if anything fucks with me ever again while I'm holding on to one of these things. And by some act of the deities themselves, I will find a way to play again. Yeah. Like experimentation, yeah. And he's banging on everything. The floor, the walls if we have them, his lute. Like, he's actually trying to see if he can figure a way to, like, hold, like, the handle against the neck and actually, like, strum a string to see if he can get, like, one of the slide bar type things going on. So, yeah, at the moment, he's not paying attention to the outside world, and he's trying to fix himself in some way.
Beautiful. Go ahead and level yourself up to 4th. We're going to go to Tane with this party self-care montage here. Go for it, my man.
So Tane has prepped the hoof as best he can for now until he can get back to it later. At least now it won't be as uncomfortable for the beast. And he looks over the provisions that were provided and considers, but he doesn't really use a shield, and so he just sort of, he can eat the food, considers that that's fine. He doesn't need any of it. And noticing that Fern had brought together some wood, he thanks him for his help and begins setting upon trying to put a fire together. It's enough to start it. And so he doesn't say anything at first. He kind of mutters something as he's walking off without realizing it, kind of grumbling about twigs or something like that, and gathers more wood for the fire. And While the heat begins to warm up, he just tries to clean his hands again, and he seems to be taking an extra long time doing so. And he just bows his head and sort of says a quiet prayer to Agyun, asking for her guidance again.
You feel like you're being watched. Obviously, you're in a room with, or a hovel with two other people, but it's different.
Like, good or bad or unknown?
Yeah, unknown at this point.
Can I get a, that be danger sense?
Go for it. You know, I like me my danger sense tests. Come on now.
Oh my.
Oh, what? Oh, shit.
Started with 2 explosions.
Yeah.
I got a total of a 40. Yeah.
Shit.
I have plus 11 on it because it's sight.
Yeah, that's well, there's absolutely a presence there, but you can tell it's neutral at this point. It's just watching you. You don't exactly know what it is, but it's something that's there.
Wow, it is very shrouded then. So I look at the other 2 and I say, do you feel the presence?
Trying to look up from what he's doing, what he's writing down, and he'll look around. I guess that's an occult insight, right?
Yes, that could be a cult insight here.
Let's see. That's going to be a 22 for that. I only got 1 explosion, not that fancy.
Yeah. 22. Yeah, it is definitely supernatural.
There's definitely something supernatural pervading the air.
It's not a vampire though.
Yeah, not a vampire.
It's distinctly different. Still don't know what it is.
Like it's in the room with us, or?
That you actually can't tell, which is probably even more horrific.
With a 40, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Can I get an occult insight?
Please do.
Have I felt it before?
No. I will tell you this without having to roll. You have never felt this specifically before.
Actually,
danger sense, correct?
Yeah, danger sense, and to attempt to identify it. Is that 20? Okay. On my screen, it's 02. There you go.
So that's a 21 for occult insight.
Yeah, same thing. It's definitely not a vampire.
How about Shadow Lord?
You can attempt that, yeah.
Yeah, not very high. I got like a 7.
No, can't tell that.
Yeah.
There's a presence. It is not a vampire. You can't tell if it's in the room with you or not, and it's supernatural. Yeah, I don't like how that is described at all. But hey.
Yeah, I'd say this may be something you want to ask the Bushkas about when they come around. Vern it's obvious to his friends who know him that it's bothering him too, but he's acting as if he's trying to act like it's not. That whole memory of his master telling him about how true measure of man is how he reacts to adversity is still fresh in his mind. So he's doing his best not to react too much. So.
Tane's gonna raise his voice a little bit, not shouting, but a little louder than a talk, and say, "Shall you join us for dinner? At least come out and have some conversation." He's just looking at our weapons are sheathed for the moment, and obviously they probably wouldn't do any good.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Your choice.
I'm muted. You get no reply.
We have stew as he begins preparing the stew for their meal. He's trying, actually, Furnace is trying to do his best to make a good hearty stew with their provisions, something to fortify them against the dampness. So I'm sure they're all basically soaked, and the fire's slowly drying their clothes out. But still, and plus also when you've had a case like we've had with those emotions running amok, a good meal sometimes is the best thing.
Unfortunately, it has to be vegetarian for Tane.
Way to rub it in.
Make good stuff with vegetarian food.
Turnips, potatoes. There you go.
Obviously, you guys have never had beans and cornbread before.
Oh well. Ooh. Okay, fair enough. I did post the master list of the loot in the chat. So quartermaster, have a go at it. That presence fades. After it's been addressed, it fades. No sooner does it fade, a few moments later, the babushkas come back. They bring the village chieftain, or well, I should say chiefess. She is a woman with them, and as large as your hovel is, it is now, there's no room for anybody else in here. It's cramped in here. And you guys sit down for a hearty meal. They brought some grouse and venison with you, and you have a relatively quiet meal together. For the scene, again, the floor is yours.
I'll spoon out some of this stew that I've put together, which is a blend of turnips, cabbage, and carrots, with a bit of apple in there for flavor. I also have some of the apples that I set off to the side and hung and roasted and covered in honey for a little bit of a sweet, sort of a extra thing for us. A bit of that venison that we had, I also on the side made a bit for me and Thorn as well, and I'll section that up to sort of pass out. So it's a nice hearty warm meal that kind of warms your soul. And I'll once everyone's presented, I make sure that I serve the chieftain and the babushkas first, because since they're our hosts. And then I'll serve each of the rest of the others and taking my meal last. And I look at the chieftain and the babushkas first before I do this. And I reach into the folds of my robe and pull out my little flask, uncork it and pour just a bit of the blood on top, and cork it again and place it back. And I say, I do apologize if this offends anyone, but it is a requirement for me because of my ancestry.
The chiefess, a Nemercian woman, just kind of looks over at you, kind of like with a questioning look, and she goes, after a few moments, "Oh, you're a half-breed."
Yes.
Oh. And she just, oh, I see. There's a
But
few
you're-
of those around.
Just know your people are not in any danger from me. So I don't willingly consume the blood of humans. So, and he thinks back to that just for a moment and gets a bit of a sheepish look on his face, thinking back to the time earlier in the day when he licked the blood from his blade, shakes his head and just begins to eat. And
That and Amorous and I would probably dispatch him ourselves.
Fern nods with a mouthful of food.
Well, luckily you're not, the chiefess is continuing here. You're not of Ophira's people in Mizarine, thankfully. Otherwise, this hovel would be very lively. She just levels the three of you with this look that, yeah, this is not a woman to be trifled with. She's a shorter Nemercian woman, but small sack of teeth.
The mention of Ophira's name brings a hard look to Fern's eyes. And he says, we are no friends to that.
Oh, good.
In fact, we owe our presence here to that. Lied to us, left us on the road to die.
The more you say, the more that the eyebrows of your hosts become furrowed. Just, yeah, they are not pleased at this.
We are no friends in any way. In fact, if they were in this building at the moment, and present company was not, I would fear you may have a fire in the middle of your village. The gleeful dancing around it of myself and my friends as we hear the screams of burning vampires within.
The Nemercian babushka actually is, she introduces herself finally as babushka Urga. She smiles at that and she goes, oh, good. Anything that wears the blue tabards of Mizarine, which you now know the color of their city, no, they're not welcome here. Any of their outriders that find themselves on the edge of our lands are set upon. We are firmly loyal to Aedra's people.
It's good to know. He takes another spoonful of food and looks to his friends and sees them sort of biding their time. And he says, we have actually been sent by Aedra here to the outlying villages to gather information about a slayer or a hunter. We heard tales that he had killed a Leshen here.
They look at each other and they just won't look at the three of you. Yeah, you heard it.
Yes. What can you tell us of this man? Did he come to the village or did he stay away?
There was a strange colored individual that I have never seen before. This is the hawk-nosed babushka. Her name is Shura. She says he came to the village twice. He brought a stag that he had felled and then left it in the center of the village, seemingly as tribute. And then he came to our storage, our trade shed, and spoke with two of our outfitters. And then 2 days later, the Leshen's mate was slain.
I'll describe him. The fellow I met at the tavern.
The chiefess does confirm that is the same individual that she saw.
Very.
She, however, does not know. If you use the term pharaonic, he has no idea what that means.
Okay. He tries to steer away from language they might understand, and just sort of gives a description of darker toned skin, and the way he was dressed, and things of that nature. Of course, the entire time while he's doing this, Fern is writing down what they're saying about that whole thing about bringing the Staggus tribute, and then 2 days later killing the Leshen. And do you know if he was staying outside somewhere, a campsite, or do you know if there was anyone giving him shelter?
He must have done, because everyone in the village has been questioned about him. He must have slept under a tree or in a gully, because we don't know. The chiefess asks you if you're a sage in your own country.
Yes, although we refer to ourselves as scholars. It's not that we know much, it's that we record what we hear and see, so that those who come after us can know much.
Oh. She seems quite pleased with that. Being a man of letters, these people are pretty podunk. They don't.
Right.
They probably have written language, but no one knows how to read.
Yeah. That's the explanation of it like that.
Mm.
I do not consider myself a person that knows a great deal, but I hope to inform those who come after me so that they may know a great deal. This is it has actually the profession that brought me here. Curiosity, unfortunately, can lead one into dark places.
The babushkas nod their accord, and all three of them give you a look like they're proud of you, but disappointed in your choice. As if you know how what the grandma look is.
Oh yeah.
Oh, bless your heart.
He says, in fact, there's a saying in my own country that curiosity killed the cat. So, and he says, was there anyone here who you said there were two provisioners who spoke with him?
Yes, there are two.
Okay. Maybe after we've had a chance to rest for the night and such, I might like to speak with them and see if they have any insight.
If you are investigating this on behalf of Adra, then by all means,
I am.
Please do.
I'll reach into my, well, actually I wasn't given anything actually official. I was told to use the name. So yes, we are. We're hoping to help her keep him from being disruptive or to cause a possible calamity with the surrounding. I think the word you use is leeches.
You just kind of get this look of.
He sort of smiles at that. He says, "No need to worry." I'm sure Adrian thinks the same of them as well.
There is a difference in there's a variety amongst vampires that is interesting. They all feed upon the living. They all drink blood, but not all of them think the same way.
So I have come to understand.
They have a varying culture amongst them. This is the chiefess speaking.
Meanwhile, I would like to introduce my companions here. This is Tainahal of Maine. He is a shaman of Agium. My friend here is Amaris Thorn. He is was a very well-known troubadour, an entertainer, player of tunes and such. I hope someday he looks over at Thorn's shoulder bandaged up, and he probably has his arm bound to his chest. I'm willing to bet to support it. He says, I hope one day his wounds heal so that his fingers may dance upon his lute once again. And I myself am Fernlaeus, scholar and student of Nephthys.
Shura, the eldest babushka, when you say your name, she cocks an eyebrow and she goes, "Dead baby."
My mother saw me as a
Literally dumbfounded look on this poor old woman's face.
my mother saw me as a thing to be studied, not loved.
It's just this look of, oh, goes across these four ladies. You poor thing, almost in unison.
It is no matter. The past is the past. We cannot change it. Only the future can we forge for ourselves.
As you conclude your meal, your hosts stand and they go, well, the chiefess reiterates, "You may stay as long as you wish. Should you stay longer than your investigation, then we would ask that you enlist yourself in aiding the village in some form or fashion. But with that, we will bid you a good evening, as the sun is starting to be very quickly set."
One question before you leave.
Mm.
And it may be a disturbing one from what I've encountered before, but is it possible to communicate with, he sort of motions toward the forest, that?
The chief just kind of looks at the babushkas, and the babushkas, they look at each other with some concern, and Urga does speak up finally, and she says, "It does not speak, but it has its way of making itself known, as well as conveying what it wants or desires, and in its own way."
Thank you. I was hoping if it did communicate, we could possibly, and he sort of looks at his friends because he knows they're probably thinking, "Oh my God, here he goes again." We might be able to ask it what it may know of this slayer, this hunter. But if it does not truly speak, then we may not need to bother it in its grief.
She continues saying, "I don't know how wise it would be to seek out a lesson in its grief, but it may be unavoidable for your particular investigation. Whether it wants company or not." Kind of amusing about about its particular feelings, not necessarily speaking to you.
Fernlaeus sort of nods. "Thank you very much for your hospitality."
And they bid you a good evening. Again with babushka hugs, and they dismiss themselves out into the rainy night.
Well, gentlemen, what do you think?
I think I need a nap at the very least.
We have a roof that does not currently leak, warm fire, and a place to lay down that is relatively free of.
You have beds.
Ooh, beds.
Beds. They have straw, but
Still,
they're
it's a bed.
beds.
Yeah.
The lap of fucking luxury, gentlemen. All things considered,
Right.
as you were.
Fern will put his bowl down after thinning it out a bit and stowing it. And he'll reach and pull out the out of his pouch, that little box, and open it up and pull a big pinch of tobacco out with a pipe, stuff it in, take a twig from the fire and light it, puff it a couple of times. And he says, I wonder what a conversation with the lesson would be like.
Say again.
I wonder what a conversation with a lesson would be like. I mean, I think it would be similar to, say, Cain trying to speak to the ox. But
Well, he didn't talk to me, but he spoke to me.
so when you speak to your horse, how do you interpret what it says?
It's an attunement. It's a friendship, kind of like how us three have developed a kinship. We have phrases and actions, and you probably start to realize that by the three of us hanging out together, we've started to have similar mannerisms and such.
We've probably fallen into a routine where, as we eat, we're probably, one person, polices the fire, stokes it up. One person takes care of the plates and bowls and so forth and so on. Like that. But beyond that, say you have that bond with your horse, but how do you speak to other horses? I've seen you do it. Is it the same way,
Different.
or is it?
I don't see. Agyun opened the mind connection between me and my companion. The difference is that when you appreciate living beings as I do, they appreciate you for that love. And that's the speech that you get from the other animals, I guess is the best way to put it. It's years of practice and understanding. Specifically with my mare, I spent a long time getting to know her, and she was hard to befriend at first, which is odd because it's not true of mares in general. But I'd say it was at least 10 or 15 cycles that we had before we actually were on somewhat equal footing. It came in spurts at first, and over time it became he chuckles and he's like, but now I'm speaking of intangibles that I cannot share with you without, and I don't mean that lesser half-breed, but I'm just saying that you would have to experience to understand how the communication works. But I guess before I ramble too long, because I don't like to ramble, the best example to give is it started out as gestures and learned behaviors, and that's where it begins. And then from there, it takes a lot of work.
So it's not something one could say learn in a night and then apply to a lesson.
I could show you the skill of taking care of animals, sure, but I don't think you would learn it overnight. I'm not sure how they do things in Fellport, but where I'm from, it takes time to learn. Maybe it's because we're geets and we're dumb, like they say, but I honestly think it's smarter.
I do not think the geets are dumb, just different. their knowledge is from different sources than the city of Philiport. But no, the reason I was asking about overnight is sometimes a person can learn a few words of a language in one evening. There was one day a fellow that he came sailing in as a big Arborian, captain of a ship, something about a moon, a lady in a moon lady or something of that nature, and he was interested in different languages, and I taught him a few words in the Yethite tongue, just a few. Those particular words a sailor would be interested in, like ordering a beer, asking someone how much something was, propositioning a lady, and he picked up a few phrases. Of course, he could not, comport himself in a proper market and in the desert lands, but didn't know if there was a way to do that with speaking to other beings of that nature. Do they have Leshen where you come from?
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, Tane probably knows more about the Leshens than most of the party. They're not beings of the darkness. They're just woodland spirits. They're fucking scary, and they're dangerous as shit when you piss them off, or because they're extremely territorial, and most rangers, because rangers talk, when they pass these things down, like, don't go into that forest, there's a Leshen there, and he's got a mean streak. Or this forest over here has a mated pair of Leshens, and you can actually move through this forest without actually making them mad. That's that kind of thing.
As interesting as this idea is of yours, Fern, I don't know if we're on the right path of just directly attempting to have commerce with it, because I don't think that it would take well to that. These creatures are moody. They are most times ill-tempered, and have been known to cut the cocks off of men and use them to decorate their holdings. It's not a pretty sight. It's disgusting. I mean, I don't know how it is in other cultures, but scared our men off, understandably. But my knowledge is that we need to learn a little more before we approach and directly try to speak.
That seems sensible. So you know more of these things than I do. I just, as you know, my immediate thought is we must go there and study it. But sometimes, as he sort of gestures around him, that's not necessarily the best idea. So yes, when it comes to the Leshen, I think my friend Tane, I'll follow your lead on that. What are your thoughts, Thorn, on this whole situation? Have you heard any stories or tales of these things, or any songs?
Actually, right before he gets ready to answer, there's a knock at the door, and he'll open it real quick, kind of like just the part where I take an eye, peek out, and it's apparently the stable hand out there. Hands me a scroll. I will thank him, and when he leaves, I'll go ahead and shut the door, and he'll take his bad arm and hold like the bottom of the scroll, and he'll try to unfurl it, and he'll read whatever's on there, I suppose.
A A dull ache shoots through your thumb, holding the bottom bit of the scroll there. But the letter reads simply, "We have met the enemy. There was blood. The heads rolled in the gullies. We wish you luck, lads. Signed, Tenelok."
That's not ominous at all. I wouldn't wonder which enemy he's referring to.
They can pretty accurately assume it's it's Miserine.
I was gonna say if I was a gambling man, I would guess Adra and Ophira came to a head in at least some way through secondary means, so to speak.
It sounds like our Slayer friend, if you will, if we wish to call him that, has fomented the conflict he wished to see. But what does this mean for us? I mean, obviously this village thinks that Adra is a kind and benevolent mistress. Of course, it's easy to see that or to believe that from a distance. We saw it close, how brutal she can be.
This is true. I think that the affairs of those two, for now, are not directly impacting us.
For now, but at the same time, if Adra falls to Ophira, where do we wind up? At least at this point, Adra has a positive view of us. Obviously, Ophira thinks of us as trash to cast off on the side of the road, but she no longer wants us. So I think something you might want to do is spend some time here, at least investigating this situation. I personally would not want to get in the middle of either side of those, but if it becomes time for us to do something pivotal, I don't think we should hesitate. If there's a way for us to get a bit of flesh from Farad, I think I'd enjoy that. He sort of fingers that one dagger, that little copper dagger that he got. He said, I think this would feel very good sliding into his eye socket. And for a moment there, his eyes flashed that red that they occasionally do when light hits them.
I can see that.
Is there a place in the village to send back a message? Like, do they have runners or anyone we could supply as a messenger person?
Actually, you know what? Yeah, you kind of close the door on that poor stable lad, and you open up the door. He's still standing there out in the rain.
Are you waiting for a tip, or are you waiting for a return message? Or the answer is simply yes.
Motion the boy in and take a bit of that stew that's still there and one of the bowls and lay him at a good healthy serving and pass this warm meal to this poor miserable wet boy.
It is a drowned rat of a 14-year-old stable boy.
Sorry. Thorn is not quite thinking of other people's
their needs.
plight at the moment. Yeah. He's
So you guys could have been like talking for like 20 minutes. He's just out there standing in the rain, looking at your front door.
Thorn, you're a cold bastard.
Got a pretty last. Thorn's not interested.
All right. No, he sits on the floor in the corner and he very greedily eats this stew.
Whatever's left in the pot, I'll make sure he eats because I'm sure as a 14-year-old boy, he probably will eat it.
Yeah, if you guys aren't like if you're done, he'll drain the pot.
He'd eat the pot if he could. Let's be honest.
Yeah, and he's a bottomless pit. God damn it. And after a moment, he says he looks up. There's an outrider on the edge of the village, waiting for your reply. I can take him. He stutters a little bit. He's obviously terrified of you guys as well as this outrider. I can take him your reply.
I'll reach out to Thorn for the parchment, look over it, and then flip it over to the back side and smooth it out a bit. Get my quill into a inkwell and say, "What should we reply, gentlemen?"
Okay.
I can elaborate a bit on that.
I mean, honestly, my first thought is, do we need to change plans? Do we need to go somewhere, or are we staying par for the course? Because I'd rather not go in the middle of a war right now, but if that's what they require, well, I think we're kind of obligated to answer. So I really don't want to.
Okay.
You're technically Aedra's agents right now, so you have not seen payment yet, but knowing how gorgeous and brutal and dangerous she could be, that could be fun, that could be dangerous. We don't know.
Okay. Okay. I'll write on there. Received your message.
Let her know that we're busy doing her work.
We have arrived safely at the village. Currently investigating the slaying of the female Leshen, and following up on tales of this slayer. If the need is dire, we will return upon request. But at this time, I think we believe our efforts to hunt down this rogue slayer may be of more import. If he knows he is being pursued, he may not interfere with the carnage.
Fair.
Okay. And I didn't do very much because I am currently writing, so
You're not paying attention. The
It's an
sage
8.
is engrossed in what he's doing.
It's an 8 for me.
Okay. 8 awareness. And for the lot of you, or the rest? You're muted, Mike.
20.
20? Okay.
16.
Okay. Those of you who passed, you hear like hoofbeats trot up, like over like the din of the rain. It's kind of it's slowed to a trickle, but there's obviously someone in the saddle who's just kind of like trotted up to your doorstep.
Impatient bastard. Give me a minute.
That's just it, right? If you guys wish to go outside and actually address him, you don't have windows on that side of the house.
I'll
open the door like the crack again and see who's out there.
I'm
You
finishing-
basically see a ring wraith.
Oh, me.
Let's see. Is it going to be an asshole? I wonder.
It's a figure in a rain cloak astride a dark gray horse that looks black. being soaking wet, just kind of like hunched over in the saddle, looking at you, and you do see the glint of one red eye under that hood. And I mean, from the saddle, he just does this. Just kind of like a three-fingered wave.
Berno look up
Claws
as
out,
the
or-
as the door opens, a little breeze comes in and ruffles the pages for looks up. Really? And he looks up and notices that Thorn's looking out. Is this messenger out there?
Yep.
He,
The little boy looks suitably terrified.
he reaches down and gets a handful of the finest earth he can get his hands on real quick. He sprinkles it across the page and drops the ink real quick, shakes it off and blows it, and then rolls it up. And he walks over to the door, looks out, looks at the fellow, holds the message out.
He just kind of rasps from under his hood. Good morning, then.
Good morning. Ride safely.
Of course. Is there anything that I need to know? I'm going back to Tenelok first before I deliver your message.
Tell Tenelok that we are on the trail of he who slew the Leshen here.
Mm.
And
The troublemaker, then?
yes, and as we know more, we will send word. And also tell him, give him hell.
You see a smile, a fanged smile, just kind of like creep across his face under that hood, and he goes, "Of course, of course."
One last thing, he gets that predatory look comes across his face that sort of enhances his vampiric side. He says, "If he finds Farad, ask him to kindly keep him alive until I can be there."
Oh, of course. Now, Tenelok has already stated that if we are able to capture Farad, that he's supposed to be drugged to U3 in chains and ignominy.
Good word for it. Through several brambles and bushes if possible, especially if there's large thorns.
Mm. He just kind
Hey, I'm as small as I can be, okay? Thank you.
he just, this scout just kind of like looks around at the village. You may want them to put up a fence.
I'll suggest it.
This is Adra's closest village. He kind of sits up in the saddle, just kind of looks around. This is Adra's closest village to Mizarine, and if the enemy is going to attack, they're going to be here within a few days.
I'll let them know in fair defenses.
Did you want to stay and help? We could use a strong back. That is, if you have one, or are you saying you don't have a strong back?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
My back is plenty strong. Thank you.
Vern just sort of shakes his head and says, "Don't mind Tane. He's that is how he shows affection."
I'm just not afraid of hard work.
The scout, he's not necessarily looking at you three. I'm guessing that Fern is outside the house. You two are hollering at him from the hovel.
Yeah, probably the door is open, the light behind me.
Oh,
You know,
okay. The scout is keeping his head on a swivel. I'll put it that way.
Okay. Watch yourself out there on the road. This Leshen is, well, it's frightening.
I
In fact,
see.
I would say that if you can postpone your trip until dawn, you should probably stay here.
I
unless
have
you
no place
believe
to
me.
sleep, and I'm needed elsewhere.
Understood.
A few hours on the road, and I'll be falling to my own bed.
Then may the gods look over you as you on your travels.
He nods. He just kind of clicks his his tongue to his horse, and he rides out into the night, back the way you guys came.
Little Fern turns, closes the doors, and says, "I'm sorry, Tay, no bedmate for you tonight. I tried."
Fern, I thought I had already warned you that I was not into the same species.
Oh, I wasn't thinking of that way. I was thinking of someone to keep you warm. But if what you choose to do is yours.
He's kind of looking at you intently, trying not to smile.
Yeah. Fern says, tomorrow morning we may want to inform the villagers here about the. Actually,
We
we
should
may
do that
want to go
tonight.
tonight.
Put up a palisade, or at least start putting
Yes.
up one right now.
Oh,
We should go speak with the head woman.
agreed.
So,
Are you about done in there, boy? By this time, I probably walked past the door.
Yeah, just holler at. Yeah, he's done. He's just kind of like he's hiding behind Tane, knowing he's probably the most formidable being he's ever seen, besides a vampire. I'm done.
Good. Now wash the dishes.
The hell off my atrium.
Right? Right. The hell off my atrium. Anyway, we'll fast forward to that. You inform the chiefess of the need of a palisade, and she starts a couple of her woodworkers on building one in the middle of the night. They will work until dawn. Keep in mind the night is almost twice as long now, so it's going to be a little bit of exhausting work. But by daybreak, they will have put up at least a third of it. And as you guys begin to bed down for the evening, one point about Tane as you begin relaxing for the evening. Tane feels that presence again, being watched. And you also feel a strange gravity drawing you to somewhere beyond the village. To the edge of the village, just beyond the palisade. You don't know.
I'd like to make a shadow lore test to see if I can.
Please do.
That is a 25.
It is not shadow aligned.
I get up, I roll out, and I gear up. Probably takes a couple minutes, and I gotta go drop a carrot. And I step out the door.
Be careful planting your vegetables, my friend.
Aye. And so I step out and I do an awareness test into the night, trying to take a deep breath. 12. 16.
The rain has slowed to basically misting right now. But somewhere back behind your hovel, as you're standing on your front porch, if you will, and you're looking out into the center of the village. The carpenters that are actually putting up the palisade are actually like behind you, and maybe about 60, 80 yards back. So you hear them moving things around, hammering things into place, that sort of thing.
Okay, but the presence is pulling me the opposite side?
In the opposite direction, yes. Towards the gate that they have set up, which is actually back the way you guys had traveled.
Is there any torches around? Like on a sconce somewhere or something?
Yeah,
Sometimes you have a
metal...
Oh.
Yeah, you can take one. You can take one on the way. That'll be safe.
Yeah, I'm going to grab one, and I'm being very alert and very cautious, but I'm
Of
walking
course.
determinedly.
Do you walk to the edge of the village?
Yes.
Okay. You pass by the stable on the way. Uh, your wards, your animals there are both sleeping soundly. In the past several hours, the stable boy has shorn the musk ox properly, so he doesn't look like hell anymore or awkward. But you can take some comfort in your belongings are still there and safe. On the way, you pass a night watchman who has a torch there, and he just waves to you as you pass without saying anything.
And I just look to him and nod. Don't say anything either.
Uh, you find yourself.
Actually, I stop and I say, "See anything?"
Nothing tonight, outside from that outrider. No,
Thanks.
there was there was a bear earlier today on the edge of the wood, but he seems to have moved on. I don't
Is that
know if
normal?
that's
Do you have
been-
one that lives in the area?
There are a few bears, but besides that, it's a quiet evening.
Good eating.
Cave bears,
Bear,
good
that
evening.
is. A lot of meat.
He gives you a polite yet short bow and dismisses himself.
Yeah, he gets it. And he turns and he starts walking out to, slowly sort of just walking out there in another awareness. That's a 16 again. Yeah, 7, 3.
You see,
No, 14. Sorry.
Oh no, you're good. You're good. You see a woman wearing a white gown. Her hair is jet black. She is deathly pale, like gray is more warm of a color on her. And her hair just like is she's soaking wet. It's half in her face, half hanging down. She's long hair almost to her waist. She's standing there out in the grass. Well, you can tell she's staring at you. Kinda, yeah. Kinda like the Grudge. Actually, more like the Ring Girl. Perfectly fair.
Come forward.
In an instant, she is standing before you. She just appears there. God, shit. Fuck.
And who might you be?
And you see her brilliant and beautiful amber eyes. She says nothing, but she looks into your eyes. You see, you have this unmistakable feeling of dread when you look upon her, but you gaze into her eyes. They're the most beautiful eyes you've never gazed into, but it's horrifyingly calm. She says nothing to you when you speak.
I'm going to just sort of quietly begin box breathing as I do a self-control on myself. But I'm making it look natural, like it's just breathing.
Okay.
That's good.
Oh,
Okay.
what do we got
so
for self-control?
31.
Ooh, yeah, there we go. Yeah, so you're able to keep it together when come face to face with the ring. She takes an unnaturally robotic, slow robotic step forward. And her hands come up like
No, we're not to that stage yet, my love. I start stepping back.
she takes a step forward, and she's gonna try and like take the sides of your face, like with her hands on like.
Yeah. We're not to that stage yet. Give me a chain or two.
And like that next instant, she takes 2 steps forward. She grabs the side of your face, actually to the sides of your face, and she actually brings you forward. And
Can I get a reflex?
you can try.
Oh.
Do it. And technically, this is an attack roll, so you can actually I can actually roll for defense. Actually. Oh shit! Oh my god. Okay. All right.
Reflex. So that would be 17.
Okay. Yep. She beats you by a few points. She didn't boost on you, but she beats you. So she gets a hold of you, and she's cold as grave clay stone, and she kisses you. And
I would like to, as she's pulling me in.
Okay, go for it.
I'm gonna take the torch and put it on her.
You're gonna put it on her? Oh, okay, all right.
I told her not to grab me.
It goes through her.
Oh shit.
But she presses her lips to yours, and again, drowned rat, icy cold. Her lips are like cold, wet clay, the clay that you would use for a grave marker. And those of us of the audience would see that there is some movement on her lips and on yours, and there's little dark, inky black vein marks appearing on her lips as she literally draws the corruption out of you. She will then reduce your shadow sickness by 1 point, and she's very strong for a petite little thing, and her tongue is like an electric eel, we'll put it that way. Being pistol whipped by a conger eel. That's what's happening here. And you pass the fuck out. We're going to close the scene here and go into soliloquies. Thorn, drifting off to sleep, closing soliloquy.
Okay. So, yeah, if they're starting to come down from bed, he would actually, he would put his dagger away. He would actually put his loot as close to him as possible, probably either underneath his bed or beside it, as he doesn't want to roll over and potentially crush it if it's in bed with him. Like his last fleeting thoughts, though, I actually look back at the door and he'll look back at Fern. Have you seen Kane? He's been gone a while. It is pouring down cats and dogs out there. And before Fern could even answer him, he's out like a light.
Fern looks up at Thorn's question, sees him fall asleep, knowing his wounds have probably been more of a strain on him today than he realized. And, he does look up at the door and thinks about Tane, wondering where he went to. He didn't say he had to, in his most colorful way, relieve himself. And with the rain, he may be huddling close to his horse, which he does quite a bit. Maybe he felt amorous. Who knows? He goes back, looks down at the page that he's scratching on the scratching sound of the quill depositing ink upon the parchment. A welcome reminder of back in his days in the library and the Yethite Quarter in Felport, copying down scrolls and such. He's writing down his thoughts. When he first came here, he knew of things like this from stories, from tales he had read, songs he had heard. He had a firm idea in his mind of what a vampire was. Some faraway, mysterious creature of the night that, though was dangerous, had an allure to it that drew those unwary into its web. And he feels that he was very much brought into that web by the allure of possibly finding information about his father. Farad had seen such a powerful being when he first met him, but now that he's come to this land and met Adra and the other vampires here, he understands that not all vampires are like the tales. Not all vampires are evil, blood-sucking creatures of the night that lure young ladies out of their chaste bedrooms to be violated and in such a salacious way as the stories say. Some are just like him. Some are brutal yet alluringly beautiful. And the tales of the great heroic men who go out to slay them may just be the stories of the victors. At first, when he saw this slayer sitting there in the tavern, he thought to himself, this is a possible ally. But now he sees the result of what this man has done. Yes, he may have killed this Leshen because he was a creature and maybe had assaulted him, but he had no thought for the village nearby of what that deed would leave them with. He dwells a bit on that howl of sorrow he heard earlier in the day, and the sense of loss comes back just a little bit. He misses home, and the firelight dances across his face, and highlights a single tear coming out of one of his eyes, which he brushes away. Must have been a bit of mote of dust once again, and he looks over to where Thorn is, asleep, a snore echoing from that bed. Looks over at Tane's bed, actually concerned about his friend, but at the same time knowing that Tane can take care of himself. He goes back to his writing for a bit more. Then he brushes the page with a bit of sand, which he keeps in his pouch as well, specifically for this purpose, and very, very deftly pours that sand back into the pouch from the page as it dries, and closes the book and latches it and places it back in his pouch before laying down himself, hoping to dream of something pleasant, but knowing that that dream will probably be haunted in the corners by that mournful call and by thoughts of those left behind and the taste of sweet, sweet blood. Shudders at that, and then rolls over and closes his eyes.
And then we go to the quickly fading Tane Halfmane. Your world spins. You become lightheaded. You go black in the grip of this banshee. You don't know if you're dead or not, but what are his last thoughts?
So Tane is in the midst of reeling from the fact that he tried to reflexively dodge, and that failed. And as a result, he tried to swipe with the torch just out of reflex. And this face is just erupts with fire. And her face becomes illuminated by the torch, and it is just, he can feel the warmth on his face, and as the elation of, he's felt this before. It's kind of disgustingly referred to, much like an orgasm, because when you have such corruption and taint removed from you, it is an exhilarating feeling. And while he does half remember and half forget, he's brought back to a moment where he was tied down by his uncle next to a fire when he was actually drawing the shadow out of himself. He didn't do it similarly, but he remembers that feeling. And that's what dims in his eyes as the scene fades in his eyes, is that his remembrance of his first experience of having shadow extracted from him.
As you about half droop to the mud, this banshee still has a hold of you. And she kind of kneels down with you, her face not leaving yours. And that sickly, corruptive marks that are appearing on her lips and now on her cheeks, they're slowly beginning to fade as she kind of like softens her grip. You're long gone by this point. But for the sake of the audience, this banshee is feeding on Tane in a way that is almost unholy. She's drawing this out of him, but there will be a cost. We know that Tane did indeed invoke the Queen of the Banshees in that previous fight, even if it was just in a snarled oath. But she continues at him lavishly, lustfully even. It almost looked like she's trying to eat his face. But he droops to the mud. There's for a few moments, just a pause, and she lets go of him. She just kind of brushes with her cold clay, wet clay fingers. She brushes the hair out of his face, and then she leans down again to kiss him on the forehead, and she fucking vanishes. And with that, we will close the session for this evening. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will be back next week. Same time, same place, same bat channel. Good night, everybody.